So, welcome back to the Middle East. Welcome back to the Balagan. This is where we pull back the curtain and we show you what's really going on in Israel, what's really going on in the Middle East, what's going on around Israel. And we're going to be doing this through the eyes of somebody who's been there, who's lived it, who's actually served 40 years on all of these borders between Israel and Lebanon, Israel and Syria, in Judea and Samaria, what we call the West Bank. I've been in Gaza many times. I've even actually been in the Sinai Peninsula. In today's Balagan, we're going to be dealing mostly with what's happening and what's not happening in southern Syria. And like everything else in the Middle East, the question is, what happens in the Middle East when the power that are in control kind of shift around, and the whole thing we think is going to go to normalizing, and then it explodes. And we've always said this: the Middle East isn't a normal place, isn't a regular place, and what's going on right now in Syria is proof that this is one big balagan. Not long ago, people were actually talking about going to Damascus, having homos in the streets of Damascus, peace agreements, new beginnings. The United States was hugging Syria. We were thinking about maybe Lebanon is going to be this. Abrahamic Accords are going to spread from Sudan in the south to Syria in the north. And the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and everybody's going to sing Kumbaya. And today we're in a full-blown balagan with Syria's new regime. So what went wrong? What might be going right? We're going to have to talk about this. We're going to make the connection to Washington. We're going to make a Saudi connection. We're going to talk about the chaos on the border and what's happening in southern Syria. We'll talk about the Druze connection, the Israeli connection, the Christian connection. But most important, we'll be talking about the biblical connection that ties all of this balagan together. This is David Tal. I'm an Israeli officer, I'm an American patriot, and I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. And I'm a connector of all things balagan in the Middle East. So let's talk about what's moving around. And like always, the question is, what is the main motivator? What's changing? What's kind of moving? What's the fuel that kind of lights this fire? And in one word, interest, or maybe two words, I call it connections. And again, it's connecting the different pieces. And I think the first one I want to talk about is the Washington connection, because the Washington connection is, I think, one of the main catalysts that has been moving everything around in the Middle East. After a stalemate of at least 2 years during this war, a year and a half during the war, and even a longer stalemate between the situation in Israel and in the rest of the Middle East, President Trump is the main, how do you say, ace in the hole, joker in the card deck. He's changed everything, and it seems that he's on a mission to expand the Abrahamic Accords, to bring the peace between Israel and the Arab world. And he wants it to be a fruitful peace driven by faith, based on power and prosperity. And he wants to add Syria to the list of successful deals. And why? The main reason, or the main motivator for him to bring Damascus into the fold would be the prestige and the geopolitical earthquake that he would create. It would be a big win for business. It would be another station in this Indian-European Silk Road that he's about to put together. It would be a financial win. It'll solidify the United States' control over this very, very critical area in the world, and it will show China that we are the boss. This we is the American we. And it's that, but it's more than that. It's not only about diplomacy. And one of the things that we've realized, or I've realized, with President Trump, he's got a very deep sense of loyalty. And loyalty is very important. So he wants to be loyal to the people he decides to be loyal to, which is why he's having a problem with what's going on in Syria, because he believes that this should not have happened. He believes that he wanted to believe that the Syrian regime is on the right path. But more than anything, he wants to deliver the Syrian gift to his most strategic and important partner in the Gulf, and that is MBS. MBS is the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. And if the price is right and he manages to pull all of this together, he's going to come out of all of this smelling even more like a Nobel Peace Prize. And we know who's going to fill out the form for him and send it to Oslo. Who's going to fill out the application and send it to Oslo? I think we actually saw him send the application to Oslo 2 weeks ago. The Saudi connection. Mohammed bin Salman realizes that Saudi Arabia cannot rest its shoulders only on the oil. And Mohammed bin Salman wants to become a regional, if not a world player. He wants to be a part of something bigger. And he realizes right now that the train that he needs to get on is the Trump train. And that's what he's been trying to do. And we saw that in the meeting that he had with Trump in Saudi Arabia. And Mohammed bin Salman sees this as an opportunity. To him, war-torn Syria and the Balagan in Damascus is a blank canvas. It's an open area. It's a vacuum that he can pour in oil money and influence and reshape the region the way he wants to. Now, he's already delivered on the Syrian front. He's already delivered oil shipments. He's already delivered economic lifelines. And he's already delivered the connection to President Trump. And to sweeten the deal, he wants to concentrate this presidential, all-inclusive, everything is okay kind of deal in front of President Trump. He says, if I can bring this to President Trump says, if I can bring this to MBS, we're going to be buddies just like me and Bibi are buddies. He opened the door. He's the one who connected Trump to Syria. He opened the door for lifting the sanctions and restarting the trade. And it pushed MBS to the front of the line in front of Turkey and in front of Qatar in order to be a part of the rebirth of this Syria regime. And if you're part of the rebuilding, you have influence. And if you have influence, you have power. And again, power is everything in the Middle East. But what is decided in the palaces and in the boardrooms and in the green rooms, the red rooms, the yellow rooms, and oval rooms is not always what is decided on the ground. And on the ground in southern Syria, there is an utter Balagan. The actual border between Syria and Israel, all of these agreements and everything kind of breaks down to a different, more tribal, more biological, if you want to put it, kind of dynamic. And the head of this, we know that Bibi is in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu is in Israel, but we have a new player in the town, and nobody really knows how to deal with him. Ahmed Sharif is the name he goes by right now, but he's also known as El Julani. He's an ex-jihadist, and he is now the president of Syria. Let's not forget, he came up through the ranks of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. He fought under Zarqawi in Iraq. He later on funded the Al-Nusra Front, which was a breakoff from ISIS and a breakoff from, he's an Al-Qaeda affiliate. Let's remember who he is. And then he went and he rebanded himself as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, claiming to sever ties with Al-Qaeda. He says, I don't know Al-Qaeda, I don't know who they are. But the ideology has never left. And what's happening in Sueda on Jabal Druze, okay, is an indication that the leopard hasn't really changed his spots. Julani, don't forget, means from the Golan, El Julani. And it's a name that ties him to this region and to the fight against Israel on this region. The Golan Heights, okay? And we'll talk about the biblical significance a little bit later. But to the world, he wears a suit. He meets with leaders, he shakes hands, he talks about peace, And in English and the translation, and when he's talking to the world, he's talking about unifying all of the different factions, all the different elements inside Syria. Quick reminder: Syria, like most of the nations in the Middle East, not including Israel, which is a different kind of dynamic, were created. All of these nations, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Jordan, were all created by the colonial powers at the end of World War One. And what the colonial powers did is they kind of grouped together geographical areas that had no, I'm going to say, demographic glue holding them together. So all of these countries, Iraq, we saw what happened in Iraq when the central power falls apart. Then the different sects, the different sectorial players start killing killing each other in Iraq. The same thing is happening in Syria. Syria has a vast majority of Sunni Muslims, but there are minorities of Alawites that controlled Syria until this last overthrow. There's a minority of Druze. We're talking about them right now. And there's even a minority of Christians that are actually in the middle of this Balagan right now. So he's got to glue all those together, but he can't do it with the Druze. He can't do it with the Alawites. So his real power comes from the extremists, his guys, his buddies that he's been fighting. He's been fighting the Americans. He's been fighting the Syrians. And now he's fighting the Druze with, and when he needs somebody to do his dirty work, he calls up his ISIS, Al-Qaeda buddies and say, listen, I need you to go take care of that. And that's what they did with the Alawites in the northern part of Syria. He said, go in there and make sure that the Alawites know who's in control of them. And that's what happened here with the Druze. The Alawites actually tried to rise up, or according to him, tried to rebel against his central power. And when he needed to, he sent his gangs into there and responded with massacres and war crimes and terror tactics that are too brutal even to decide. He's doing the same thing on Jabal Druze. He's doing the same thing to the Druze minority. And what he is doing is sending his goonies, these ISIS affiliates, these Al Qaeda grown crazies, and they're going into the Druze city of Sueda and doing what they did in the north and doing what they did in other places. We thought it would be different. The regime promised the Druze their protection. They promised that they would be okay. They promised that they would be part of the government. They promised that everything would be fine. But then a local clash between some of the Bedouin tribes and the more, militant Bedouin tribes and some of the Druze villages broke out in Suwaida. And in days, it turned into a full-blown war zone. The reports that I'm getting on are horrific. And Julani sent in the militias, and their idea was to restore control. But that restores control comes in the Al-Qaeda way, comes in the ISIS way, executions, atrocities, but also, you see the videos coming up are humiliations and shamings. And all told, what we know today, about 1,100 are already confirmed dead, including men and women and children. Whole families are completely wiped out. And like other jihadi style operations, the atrocities are not random. They're not a result of somebody going crazy. They're not a result of, oh, you killed my father, now prepare to die. They're calculated. They're calculated to create terror. They're calculated to create, to subdue somebody, to put him under your boot. They're calculated to terrorize and to send a message to whoever is going to rise up against this government. If this is what you want to do, this is what we're going to do to you. We saw it in the 7th of October. It wasn't just to come out and attack. It wasn't to fight against the army. It wasn't even to fight against civilians. It was to do things so terrible that they will they will strike fear in the heart of their enemies. They're walking around the Druze towns and they're executing people. But before they execute them, the Jews are really into their mustaches and beard. If you've been in Israel, you go up to the Mount Carmel. We've been there many times. Beards and mustaches are a symbol of a pious man. They're shaving off the beards before they execute the old man. That reminds us of something historic. That reminds us of a feeling. I mean, I'm just seeing the pictures of the humiliation and the domination, and it brings chilling echoes of the Holocaust. The same way that the Nazis would shave the Jewish men of their beards and cut off their hairs, they want to dehumanize, and they want to. I don't want. It's like a war. It's like David and Goliath. I saw the House of David a little while ago, and one of the things that they stressed in the scene between David and Goliath, that Goliath and David are both saying it's not a war between me and you, it's a war between my God and your God. And what they're doing is they're trying to dehumanize the religion of the people that they're putting under their boot. And they're doing it in the name of jihad. And they're doing it in the name of what's going on. And what really, really freaked me out about this one is that in the beginning, while we knew it was happening, the Druze knew it was happening. We have Druze communities in Israel who are connected by family to those. Everybody in Israel knew what was happening. It's all over the news in Israel, and the world was silent. I didn't see any demonstrations in the capitals of Europe. There were no sit-ins in the Ivy League universities. There were no camps. There was no slogan. Do you have any slogans that are connected to the Druze? There's no slogan. There's no viral AI-generated image that is completely wrong, that is sweeping across the internet. Silence. Crickets. The Druze. They're being massacred. Nobody's talking about it. They're being genocided, actual genocided. Nobody's talking about it. And the Druze, who had thought they could stay neutral through this whole thing, have been trying to watch. Remember, the Druze are a minority. They've been targeted. They've been persecuted. They know what it's like. And they've been trying to walk between the waves. They've tried to do what Jews have done in different nations down through the ages. Again, if we don't make noise, maybe they'll go by. If we hide in the back, maybe they'll just break the window. I mean, the Druze were going through the same thing. They reached out to the government in Syria. They reached out and say, let's reach an agreement. They tried to be a part of the government, and nothing. And when the massacre started and the humiliation started, all of a sudden, Israel said, we cannot let this go on. And Israel got into that. We'll be talking about this in a moment. And suddenly, this is the moment when the world starts paying attention. This is the moment when the world starts talking about, because Israel is involved. This is a moment we're being blamed for trying to grab territory in Syria. This is where we're being blamed for attacking Syria. And when we pushed in and we said to the Syrian government, stay away from the Druze, okay? And if you don't, you have to. And again, we did what we need to do. We're in a different Middle East today. We bombed the headquarters of the Ministry of Defense inside Damascus to make it known that this cannot continue. And then, together with that, the United States of America manages to put together a ceasefire that was signed by El-Julani himself that basically says, we're going to cease the fire. And Israel told them, pull the forces out of the Jabal el-Druze, pull the forces out of the Druze area, and keep them out of there. And when they did move tanks into the Druze area, Israel actually took out the tanks. And we have movies, we have clips of Israeli drones taking out tanks that are headed into, and we have the Druze saying that they are the. And we have the Druze waving Israeli flags saying, thank you. I just now heard a very strong testimony of a Druze fighter who says that they had been rounded up in one of the squares in El Sueda, and they were being ridiculed, and the Bedouin, the soldiers were ready, and basically they knew that they were going to die. And all of a sudden, an Israeli fighter flies over and it scattered all of the jihadists, and that's what saved them. Israel's drawn the line. Benjamin Netanyahu said southern Israel must be demilitarized, and there is a very, very quiet threat that if the Syrian regime doesn't turn this down and get control over these crazy jihadists who are slaughtering the Jews for no reason, Israel will go in and capture the whole area of southern Lebanon all the way to the outskirts of Damascus. And here's the thing, we can't. Nobody could stop us if we decided to do this. And there is that threat there that we're saying no armed Syrian forces on the southern part, no jihadist militias, no exceptions. And the question is why? Why is Israel sticking its neck out? Why is Israel putting its foot down? Why is Israel using its force for the Druze? I mean, they're not Jewish. It's not in Israel. What's the reason? And here's where the whole story gets a little bit more interesting. Because first of all, I think we talked this on the last video, and if you haven't seen the last YouTube video that went up a couple days ago, go back and you will go into the connection between the Druze in Israel, the Druze in Syria, and the Druze in Lebanon. And the Druze in Syria have family ties to the Druze in Israel. And the Druze in Israel, they serve with us. They defend this land. I have had Druze commanders above me and Druze soldier before underneath me. I've stood in foxholes with Druze. I've been in tanks with bullets going over us. One of the first casualties in this war in Gaza was a tank commander of my old tank commander company when I was in the regular army, who was killed inside Gaza, and he was a Druze from, I think, from Daliat or Osfia. I mean, this is the connection that we have, and we cannot abandon them now. It would be a fraction in the alliance. The Druze supported us in 1947, where we were not the great army that we are now. We're not the how do you say, military powerhouse that we are now, and they stood by us, and they took the risk, and we have to stand by them. And again, we need to remember who we are, because we are Jews. They're Druze, we're Jews. Don't get it mixed up. But we remember Egypt. We remember Babylon. We remember the silence of the world when we were being killed in the streets and the world was silent. But we also remember the faithfulness of God. We remember what it means to be a remnant. We remember what it means to be hunted and hated and yet held in the palm of God's hand. And it looks like this time God is going to use us, the Jews, to save a remnant, to save a minority, to show the world that we are different. And I can't help but connect the fact that this whole story is a test, a test case, a pilot to say, wait a minute, Israel, wait a minute, Jews, you've said this, you've said this, you've said this. Are you willing to stand up for the same values that you have actually pushed and you have actually complained that the other world, the rest of the world doesn't stand up to? So when we see others like the Jews, are you willing to stand up for them? We see our story in their story. And again, this is us. This is the Bible. You can't disconnect. And again, it says, defend the cause of the weak and the fatherless, and uphold the rights of the oppressed and the afflicted. That is in Psalms 82, if I can read this correctly. And Israel decided to act. And we're doing this for a lot of reasons, but we're acting because we need to hold ourselves to the standards that we believe is right. And again, this is the Jewish people. This is God's chosen people. We're not all born again Christian. We're not right. We're not even, we don't always walk, but we are a culture, a nation, and a religion that is based on biblical values. And one of those biblical values is stand up for the oppressed. And we are. We're standing up for the oppressed. We're standing up for our borders across, for our friends across the border. Um, Somebody broke down the fence. Druze populations inside Israel broke down the fence and started going into Syria in order to fight with them. I don't know what's going to happen with them. We're going to have to wait and see how that works. Excuse me a minute. So, right now, the situation is that the Druze, the fighting has toned down. The Syrian regime has taken the threat of Israel seriously. They've moved most of their forces out, and now there's this kind of diplomatic mumbo jumbo in order to reorganize or reconnect this Middle East, how do you say, peace that everybody is hoping, Middle East stability that everybody is hoping is going to be connected. But I think more than anything, we've learned a lesson. What about the Christians? Because for most of the people that are watching this, don't forget that there's Sunni Muslims in Syria, but there's Alawites and Druze, but there's also a Christian minority. And the Christian minority is in the same place that the Alawites and the Druze are. And this is something that I think we need to understand. The Christians are under fire, just like the rest of the minorities. Just a quick overview. Before the war in Syria, the civil war that started, I think, something like 10 years ago, okay, there were almost 2 million Christians in Syria. Today, there's fewer than 500,000 Christians in Syria, but there's something very interesting about the Christian community in Syria itself. A lot of them are Syriac, and very interestingly, a lot of them still speak Aramaic. Now, there's some Syriac Christians in Israel. I've met quite a few. I've got quite a few friends. And it's very interesting to hear them speak Aramaic, which is basically the language that the Greek New Testament that you read has been translated from. Jesus spoke Aramaic with the people around him. It's really kind of cute. And they are part of a very, very old Christian community that they believe dates back to Paul. I mean, Paul actually started off the first communities and the first churches inside Syria. Don't forget, I mean, the whole story of Paul started off on the road to Damascus, literally on the Golan Heights, literally where all of this is happening right now. The thing is this, the Syrian regime uses the Christians, uses them as a prop in order to wave a flag in front of the world, uses them to say, oh, we're taking care of our Christian minorities. But in between and underneath, the Christian leaders are being kidnapped, and a whole family of Christians, of a Christian pastor, were slaughtered inside the Druze area. It was a family of Druze that had become Christian. They were actually in the church inside the Druze town of Sueda, and they were slaughtered by these gangs that went through. The whole family, I think there were 6 or 7 of them. Earlier this year, 25 Christians were killed when a suicide bomber blew himself up inside one of their churches. This is a very old church. This is a very, how do you say, ingrained church. It's one of the oldest churches in the world. And now, just like everything else, they're under threat. And I can't help but make the connection. Here's the twist. There's no U.S. forces on the ground in Syria that are going to defend them. There's no worldwide Christianity that's going to walk the streets and intervene for them. There's nobody that's going to defend these Christians. There's nobody that's going to defend these Jews. But it's the IDF. And I'm proud to say it. I got to say, the Israel Defense Force will not just defend Israel, but it will defend Christians and minorities, both in Lebanon and in Syria. And again, I've kind of connected to some of the Lebanese Christian communities. And I find it fascinating. I mean, I can't make this up, that the Israel Defense Force is defending Christians in Muslim Syria, in Damascus, no less. that the Israel Defense Force is defending Druze minorities on the hills of southern Syria. I mean, what else can you ask for? So, wow, that was quite a bit. And I can't help but make one more connection that I think is really important. Well, a couple more. This isn't just about Syria. Underneath that all, there's a spiritual battle. Israel is God's flag. Israel is God's flag waving in a broken world. Israel is God's flag where God says, I make my promises. I made a promise to Abraham 3,800 years ago, and I keep my promises. And when I keep my promises, the people that result from me connecting them to my promise are going to be a special kind of people. And here it's being proven on the ground. It's been proven for thousands of years now, and here it's being proven again. We are God's, I don't know what to, I mean, and again, and I can't really say, not all of Israel are Christian. We're not doing what's right, but we still have God's promise on us. And whether the Israelis realize it or not, whether they accept it or not, the world is watching to see what happens to us. The world is watching to see what we do, what we don't do. And I think this is critical. The world cannot turn away. Look at this. The Druze were being slaughtered. Nobody cared. Israel gets into it. All of a sudden, everybody zoomed in on that. Things are happening all over the world. Nobody cares. You look at the headlines on any major news network, Israel's in the middle of it. It's all about the world watching what happens with God's people. And I'm glad to say, as of now, it seems that Israel, God's people, are representing God's values in the correct manner. So when you pray for the IDF, when you pray for the Israeli army, when you pray for Israeli soldiers, you're praying for the Israel Defense Force, but you're also praying for, I know it sounds weird to say it like this, but for God's promise force in some way. And I think that's fascinating. And again, I've been saying this again. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you that Israel is being put in a place where it gets a chance to showcase and explain this. I also want to say thank you all for the support that you've been getting. The Balagan Connection has been reaching many more people, and I need you to do it. If you haven't, please subscribe, click the like button, share, comment. Me and Christy sit here and read the comments. Please comment. If there's anything you want to ask, if there's anything you want to hear about, do that. We're going live tomorrow in Signal Hill, so check that out. I will be with Pastor James Cadiz and Pastor Tom Hughes. We'll be talking about all of this tomorrow at 11 or 11:30 Pacific time. So be connected, stay connected, pray for us. And if you do want to support anything that we're doing, hit the click here on the QR code or on the logo. Go to GihonSprings.com. Stay strong. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And remember, the God of Israel is still meddling in the history of the world today. This is David Tal. This is the Balagan Connection. Hope to see you soon.